Hello, I'm Tyngsboro Town Administrator Matt Hanson here to discuss the upcoming special town meeting warrant for December 11th, 2017 at the Tyngsboro Elementary School. On this special town meeting warrant, there are 12 town-sponsored articles and 1 citizen petition, and I just want to go through them briefly and give a little bit more of a background and explanation than you see written on the warrant. Article 1 is a home rule petition for additional liquor licenses. You may remember Tyngsboro has done this on numerous occasions in the past to increase our number of liquor licenses to allow for mainly additional restaurants in town, specifically all alcohol restaurant licenses. This particular article asks for 6 additional licenses. 3 would be specific for the Tyngsboro Crossing Plaza at 440 Middlesex Road. Developers interested in doing a development at that location right now. 2 additional licenses would be located somewhere along Kendall Road, Middlesex Road, or Pawtucket Boulevard. They would be reserved for that corridor. And then 1 license would be reserved for 324 Middlesex Road, again, for economic development for additional restaurants in town. Article 2 is a conveyance of property on River Road to the Tyngsboro Water District, or more appropriately, a permission or approval for a conveyance to the Water District. There's 2 parcels on River Road. It's commonly known as the Hunter property. According to the assessor maps, one parcel is 19510. That was purchased by the town in 2003. It's a 17-acre parcel. It was purchased for $350,000 through community preservation funds. And then parcel 1950 is a 14.7-acre parcel purchased by the town in 1988 for $400,000. The Water District has approached the town about purchasing both of these properties for the purpose of installing a well. It would generate about 1 million gallons per day for the town. What we're asking is for town meeting to authorize the Board of Selectmen and the Conservation Commission to enter into negotiations and ultimately conduct a transfer of that property. There would be conservation restrictions put on the property to ensure that it's still available for passive recreation and open space, but then the town will also likely get most of that money back to then purchase additional open space land as well. Certainly the $350,000 in CPC funds would have to go back to the CPC. So ultimately, that land would still be available for public recreation, and we would also have funds to purchase even more land. So that's the intent of Article 2. Article 3 is an appropriation from CPC to fund the First Parish landscaping and parking lot design. They haven't voted on this article yet, but we have the request out. They'll be voting on it this week. This is for $15,000. As you know, at the annual town meeting appropriated $1.7 million for that property to fully renovate the interior. This $15,000, now that you know the Adams Barn has been demolished, we can start the landscape design and engineering work. Any work on the parking lot and or reconfiguring the entrance and the roadways on that property is going to require engineering design, likely stormwater because we're so close to the pond, and we're going to be changing the impervious surface. So we do need some engineering funds to do that work. It's outside the scope of what we can do with our staff internally. That entrance and exit to that parking lot, as you know, was designed around the Surefine building, which is no longer there. Both the Surefine and the Adams Barn are gone now, so it does need to be reconfigured to make it easier to access and also for handicap accessibility. So we're asking for $15,000 under Article 3. Under Article 4 is a transfer from free cash to purchase streetlights from National Grid. This is a project that was brought up 6 or 7 years ago in town when the technology was still very new, very costly. It's come down significantly in price, as well as the maintenance has come down in price. And the state of Massachusetts has offered grants, which Tyngsboro was fortunate enough to receive, about $30,000 in state grant funding to convert those streetlights to LED if we purchase them from National Grid. So ultimately, this one-time upfront $100,000 will be matched by state grant funds of $30,000 if we move forward, and then immediately next year and every year moving forward, the town will be saving $35,000 to $40,000 a year in electricity costs. And that includes the annual new ongoing maintenance of the LED lights, which would be the town's responsibility. There would still be a net savings of $35,000 to $40,000 a year. So the return on investment is almost immediate under Article 4. Article 5 is a transfer from free cash to fund the preliminary design of a public safety complex, which could be 1 or 2 buildings in the future. The 2 public safety chiefs, police and fire chiefs, have spoken about this a number of times with the Board of Selectmen. As you know, the fire department held an open house recently, and we've started to explore some parcels close to the center of town, specifically where the new fire station could be located. Police station, there's a little more flexibility in location, but a fire station headquarters, as you know, because of the equipment and response times, needs to be located in the center of a town. We've identified a few parcels, and we've done some initial work with a small amount of money we have in the budget, but we don't have money within the budget to conduct that next step, which is really a preliminary design and cost estimation. This would be not a cost estimate in the way that other towns have just completed fire stations for, say, 8 million here or 12 million here, or a public safety complex for 15 million. This would be helping us identify a specific site and designing a specific station or stations through discussions with the Board of Selectmen and looking at the different site for a specific station of a certain size and coming back with a specific dollar amount so we could make a future town meeting request for funding when we're ready, and we would have a design in hand to show town meeting, and we would also have a solid funding request for a Tingsboro specific station or stations in the future. So this is the first step before the town could come forward and make a request for the full funding of a new public safety building. This is really the first step we need to take. And also to supplement Article 5, at the last Board of Selectmen meeting, the Board of Selectmen and FinCom discussed our debt service and how could we potentially fund some of these options in the future. So we have a chart here which is also posted separately on the town's website, tingsboroma.gov. If you click on the town's website anytime between now and town meeting on December 11th, there's a banner right in the middle of the page that will give you a link to all of the supporting documents for the upcoming town meeting. This shows the Tingsboro's aggregate debt schedule currently, non-exempt debt, which we carry in the budget, and then our exempt debt in blue. And we also have our full Excel of our debt schedule. And what we put on here are a few potential public safety options. You'll see as you read through this, safety complex funded at an estimated $7 million, and then another option at $13.5 million. And we show, based on our current debt level, what would be those costs and how could we absorb those sort of within the budget. This is excluded debt, so it would take another ballot vote to approve any of these projects in the future, but this is just showing that with current debt falling off, you could replace the debt with a new public safety building and still be at around where we are now, maybe a little lower, maybe a little above, depending on what option the town would choose at some point in the future. And we also do make a note in here about the cost for a potential major school renovation project, such as a $30 million project with a 50% reimbursement. We note in here that would cost on average $240 per year. So that's another option that could be added into our debt schedule at any point. If neither of these public safety complex projects move forward, you could easily stick that in here and see what type of effect that would have on your tax bill. So it's really all the information you need to think about how a major building project, either school project or public safety building, may affect the tax bill in the future. So that information is available on the town website now. Article 6, budget transfers. These are just mid-year budget transfers. There's no funding request in addition to what you already approved at the annual town meeting. We would typically do this at the annual town meeting in May if we didn't have a special town meeting. But where we are having the special town meeting, there are already some items we know are going to need to be adjusted. We figured we'd get some of them done now and maybe reduce the number we would need to do in the spring. The largest one on here is debt interest is basically being transferred to debt principal. We hadn't completed a permanent borrowing at the beginning of the year, so we were carrying extra money in our long-term debt interest line item, and so we simply just need to transfer that into the debt principal line item now, now that we have completed the permanent borrowing for some major capital projects that were previously appropriated at town meeting. Article 7 is a lease of school property for solar. This is to authorize the school committee to enter into 20-year pricing agreements for any future solar projects. They don't have a particular project in mind yet or approved yet, but this would give them the authority to enter into a future project, such as leasing a school roof for solar panels, or all the school roofs for solar panels, or some other school property. They would require town meeting approval, and this would give them that sort of blanket approval if they were to pick a project in the future. Article 8 is a $150,000 request from the Sewer Enterprise Fund. This funding request comes from their retained earning funds, not from the general taxpayers, but from sewer retained earnings to construct wet well replacement at the Flint Corner Pump Station. The Sewer Department has one other request for $500,000 for the purposes of financing the Middlesex Road North Force Main. As they were doing Middlesex Road, as they were doing the phase 1 of the sewer expansion, they realized when they were in the middle of Middlesex Road, there would be cheaper to get this force main completed while they already had the road open. So they completed this work as a change order under phase 1, but they would like to appropriate the additional $500,000 for that now. So they're still only borrowing the same amount for phase 1, and the phase 1 payments are going only towards the phase 1 project. So they've completed the work now, but they want to pay for it separately, essentially. Probably do a more lengthy explanation of that at town meeting if people have questions, but that's the overview. Anyways, Article 10 is to see if the town will vote to amend the Tingsboro general bylaws for the right to farm bylaw. The current right to farm bylaw has a disclosure notification form that the town is supposed to notify landowners anytime there's a transfer or exchange of real property in town. It's not really a practical notification procedure. We don't always know when property is being transferred in town necessarily. This was borrowed from other communities. Some other communities have similar language, but we also look for communities that have more simpler notification procedures. So the Agricultural Commission will be voting on this in about a week, but as it's currently written, this has been worked on by the chairman of the AgCom and our legal counsel and our assistant town administrator, that notification will be now done through signage on major thoroughfares leading into the town. So on our major roadways, there'd be a sign at the entrance or at the exit that says Tingsboro is a right to farm bylaw, as a right to farm town. In addition, we would post that information on our town website and do a prominent posting somewhere on a billboard here in town. The right to farm bylaw in general gives farms certain rights, and there's an understanding that farms are an important part of our community and have certain rights because of that. Again, the bylaw has already been passed. This is just a tweak to that notification provision. That's the only change under Article 10. Article 11 is an inclusionary zoning, an amendment which is going to include a full inclusionary zoning bylaw. There's a whole separate presentation on the town's website now, if you go to, again, tingsboroma.gov, specific to this article, so I won't go into it in great detail. The intent of this article is just to ensure that in large housing developments anywhere in town in the future, for larger developments, they're going to be required to include a certain percentage of affordable housing as part of that development, so the town never falls below our 10% threshold as required by state law. Of course, being over 10% allows the town to be more selective in the types of projects we'd like to improve. Otherwise, through Chapter 40B of the state law, developers can essentially circumvent our town zoning. So this is intended to help prevent that and to give the town a little bit more control over development in the future. So please check out that entire presentation if you're more interested in learning more about that. Article 12, this is really the last town-sponsored article. There's just two very small unpaid bills that we need to take care of. There's a $90 bill and $170 for 3 training reimbursements for our plumbing inspector, and then some business cards. The invoice came in a little too late to make last fiscal year. There is one citizen petition for an amendment to the zoning bylaws regarding marijuana establishments. This would seek to ban recreational marijuana establishments in Tingsboro. I'm going to be doing a separate video specific to the marijuana timeline in Tingsboro and in the state, because there's been a lot of confusion about that article, about that topic in particular. So I'm sure the citizen who's bringing this forward will discuss their reasoning for it on town meeting floor. But we will have a separate town-sponsored video shortly just on what steps Tingsboro has undertaken regarding marijuana and the state law. That is all we have on the special town meeting warrant. We hope to see you on December 11th, 2017. Town meeting starts at 7 p.m. at the Tingsboro Middle School, 205 Westford Road. If you have any questions on any articles before town meeting, please feel free to reach out to us, and we'd be happy to answer your questions. Thank you very much, and have a great day.